Hello, friends. We are interested in the geography of our views, so please like and write in the comments from which city are you watching us, and were there loud stories of betrayal in your city? Perhaps the next story about betrayal will be from your city, and we start. The sun had just set below the horizon, bathing the suburban streets of Maplewood, New Jersey in a soft golden light. The area was quiet, with only the occasional sound of a lawnmower or a dog barking in the distance. Karen Miller stood in front of the full-length mirror in their second-floor bedroom, smoothing the lapels of her navy blue jacket. Her dark hair was neatly pulled back into a high ponytail, and her sharp green eyes carefully studied the reflection with the precision that revealed her as a woman who did not miss a single detail. At 38, she looked like someone who had worked her way up the corporate ladder at Vanguard Solutions, the technology company that dominated the East Coast. She had a late meeting with a client tonight, and Karen had to look perfect. "Volume," she shouted, adjusting her gold hoop earrings. "Have you seen my black shoes? Well, the ones with the strap?" From below, from the kitchen, a muffled voice came through the wooden floors. "Look in the closet, honey. On the left, next to the boots." Karen sighed, already heading towards the dressing room. "You always say, 'Look in the closet,' as if I didn't look there," she muttered under her breath. She flicked the switch and looked around at the neatly arranged shelves. There they are, black leather, ankle strap, exactly where Tom said. She put them on, took one last look in the mirror, and grabbed her laptop bag from the bed. Downstairs, Tom Miller stood at the kitchen counter, holding a glass of iced tea in one hand and his phone in the other. At 40, he retained the rugged charm of his college football days. Broad shoulders, a slightly crooked smile, and a mop of sandy blonde hair that he left slightly tousled to look natural. He owned Miller's Hardware, a small chain of 3 stores in the area, and business was going smoothly. Not brilliant, but stable. Hearing the click of Karen's heels on the stairs, he looked up. "Well, don't you look like you're about to close $1 million deal?" he said, putting the phone down and giving her a long, approving look. Karen grinned as she tossed her bag onto the kitchen island. "Only $500,000, but I accept the compliment." Tom chuckled, pushed off the counter, and stepped closer. "$500,000 today, $1 million tomorrow. This is my girl." He leaned down and kissed her forehead, holding his lips a little longer than usual. "You smell good. Is this Chanel?" "Almost. Creed," she corrected, brushing a speck of dust from his flannel shirt. "And you smell like sawdust and machine oil. Have you been to the store again?" "Guilty on all counts," he replied, raising his hands in a playful gesture of surrender. "Had to help Pete unload the shipment this afternoon. The guy is as strong as a wet noodle." Karen shook her head, but there was a sparkle of amusement in her eyes. "You should be the boss, Tom. Let the kids carry the weights themselves." "Yes, but I'm a boss who likes to be in control," he grinned, nodding toward the refrigerator. "Will you have time to have dinner before leaving? I made that chicken you love with garlic and lemon." She glanced at her watch, 1842. "The meeting is at 8, and it's 40 minutes to the office, taking into account traffic. It's tempting, but I'll have to refuse. I'll grab something on the way. And you eat, don't wait for me." Tom raised an eyebrow, crossing his arms. "Sure. I toiled at the stove for a whole 20 minutes. 20 minutes? Oh, poor thing," she teased, taking the keys from the counter. "I'll make it up to you this weekend. Dinner at my expense, how do you like it?" "Agreed," he said, pointing his finger at her. "But I chose the place. No more of those fancy eateries with portions the size of my thumb." Karen laughed loudly, sincerely, filling the kitchen with sound. "Okay, burgers and beer. You're so predictable." "And you love it," he retorted with a wink. She rolled her eyes, but the smile never left her face as she slung her bag over her shoulder. "See you later, my master builder." "Good luck, corporate queen," he called after her as she headed for the garage door. The door clicked shut behind her, and Tom stood there a moment longer, listening to the soft rumble of her SUV as it pulled out of the driveway. He took a sip of tea, then turned to the stove, where a frying pan of lemon garlic chicken was cooling. "Well, looks like it's just you and me, buddy," he muttered to the empty kitchen, picking up a plate. An hour later, Karen sat at a polished table in a conference room on the 16th floor of Vanguard's downtown office. Outside the huge floor-to-ceiling windows lies a sparkling horizon, a sea of lights stretching into the distance. Sitting across from her was Daniel Pierce, a potential client with a tech startup that was making waves in the artificial intelligence space. He was in his early 30s, his suit fit perfectly, and there was a nervous energy in his movements. He tapped his pen on the table every few seconds. "So, Karen," Daniel began, leaning forward, "your presentation last week was compelling, very convincing, but I need to know if Vanguard has the capacity to grow with us. We forecast growth of 300% by the third quarter of next year." Karen didn't even flinch. She opened her laptop, bringing up the spreadsheet she'd been poring over for half the weekend. "We have the resources, Daniel. I've done the math. Our servers can handle your data volume, and I already have a team ready to connect to you next month. The integration will be smooth, no bottlenecks." He nodded, but the handle continued to knock. "And the cost? Investors are breathing down my neck. They want efficiency, not excuses." Karen handed him the printed sentence across the table, her voice remaining level. "Page 6. We have reduced the standard rate by 15% because you are not just a client for us, but a partner. Vanguard grows with you." Daniel opened the required page and ran his eyes over the numbers. The knocking stopped. "HM, you're not kidding, right?" "I'm not kidding when we're talking about a $500,000 deal," she answered with a light, confident smile. "So what do you say? Shall we move on?" He leaned back in his chair, the corner of his mouth turning up into a smirk. "You're good, Karen. Damn good. Give me a night to think about it. I'll talk to the financial director. The answer will be by Friday." "Friday is coming," she said, closing her laptop. "But don't delay. I have 2 other startups in mind, and I wouldn't want you to miss out." He laughed, standing up to shake her hand. "Accepted. You're a shark, you know." "Only when necessary," she answered, squeezing his hand tightly. At home, Tom was lounging on the living room couch, a baseball game flashing on the TV screen. The Yankees had a 2-run lead in the 7th inning, but he wasn't paying much attention. The phone on the coffee table vibrated, and Tom reached for it, squinting at the screen. Message from Pete, store manager. "Hey, boss, the supplier screwed up the drywall order again. Do you want me to give them a dressing down?" Tom groaned, rubbing his face with his hand. "Always something," he muttered, typing the answer. "Yes, call. Say that we won't pay full price for half the delivery. Keep me posted." He threw the phone to the side and sank deeper into the pillows, glancing at the clock on the wall. 21:15. Karen will return no earlier than in an hour, or even 2 if the client delays. He thought about the chicken in the refrigerator, about the quiet house, oh, the calm rhythm of their lives. Not fancy, not perfect, but it works. She chases her victories, he keeps his small empire afloat, and somehow everything works out. The game hummed in the background, and Tom closed his eyes, letting the distant noise of the crowd lull him into a half-asleep state. Her half of the bed was empty upstairs, and her shoes were still standing by the closet where she had left them. The clock on the dashboard of Tom's truck read 11:47 p.m. as he pulled into the parking lot in front of the glass front of the Vanguard Solutions building. The sky above the city center was black, dotted with rare stars, and the lights of skyscrapers were reflected in puddles after the recent rain. Karen's corporate party lasted longer than she promised. At 9 o'clock in the evening, she wrote, "I'll be ready by 11. Will you pick me up?" Tom answered briefly, "Certainly," and here he was, parked at the entrance, turned off the engine, and waited. The cabin was quiet, only the faint hum of the air conditioner breaking the silence. Tom drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, looking at the brightly lit hall through the huge windows. Silhouettes of people flashed inside, someone with a glass in their hand, someone laughing, leaning towards their interlocutor. Karen loved these types of events. The opportunity to make connections, show off, remind her boss that she was more than just a cog in the machine. Tom, on the contrary, hated crowds, and noise his element was shelves with nails, and the smell of freshly cut wood in the store. But he didn't complain. This was her world, and he respected it. He reached for the phone on the passenger seat and dialed her number. After 3 rings, the answering machine started. "You've reached Karen Miller. Leave a message, and I'll call you back." Tom frowned, but didn't say anything, just hung up the call. Maybe she's in the restroom. Or the phone is silent. There is always loud music at these parties. Tom leaned back in his seat, crossing his arms. 5 minutes passed. 10. In the hall, a woman in a red dress laughed loudly, slapping her colleague on the shoulder. Tom sighed and decided to go out wait at the entrance, and at the same time stretch his legs after a long day in the store. He slammed the pickup door, shoved his hands into his jeans pockets, and headed toward the glass doors. The air was cool, with a slight taste of rain. 2 men in suits were smoking at the entrance, releasing clouds of steam into the darkness. One of them nodded to Tom, who nodded back, but did not stop. Through the glass, he saw a spacious room, a long table with snacks, a bar in the corner where the bartender deftly mixed cocktails, and dozens of people divided into groups. Music, some kind of modern jazz, could be heard even here, muffled by the walls. Tom squinted, looking for Karen among the crowd. Her dark jacket and formal silhouette usually stood out, but now he couldn't find her. He was about to go inside when he noticed movement to the side, at the far end of the hall, where the windows looked out onto the terrace. There, in the shade of the ornamental plants, stood Karen. Her profile was clearly visible. She tilted her head slightly, listening to someone. Next to her was a man tall, wearing a dark shirt with rolled-up sleeves, with short dark hair. They stood closer than they should for a normal conversation. Tom froze. He didn't know the guy, but something about their positions, the way the man leaned slightly toward Karen, and she didn't move away, made his insides clench. He stepped closer to the glass to get a better look. The man said something, and Karen laughed, quietly but sincerely, covering her mouth with her hand, as she did when she wanted to hide a smile. And then there was what Tom would later call the awkward hug. The man extended his hand as if about to pat her on the shoulder, but instead his palm lingered on her back, just below her shoulder blades. Karen didn't pull away. She turned to him, and for a split second their bodies moved closer, as if they were about to hug for real. But then both stepped back, as if they had caught themselves on something. The man put his hands in his pockets. Karen straightened her hair. Awkward. Too awkward. Tom felt the blood pounding in his temples. He wasn't a jealous person, at least that's what he told himself. In 12 years of marriage, he had no reason to doubt Karen. She was straightforward, honest, busy with her career. But this moment, something was wrong about it. Too close, too personal. He took out his phone and texted her, "I'm at the entrance. Where are you?" The message went away, but Karen did not reach for the purse hanging on her shoulder. She was still talking to this guy, now a little further apart, but still in her own little world. Tom clenched his jaw, put the phone away, and pushed the door. Inside, he was struck by the hum of voices and the smell of expensive perfume. Someone tapped him on the shoulder, apparently mistaking him for a colleague, but Tom didn't turn around. He made his way through the crowd, keeping Karen in his sights. She was still standing by the terrace, and the man, now Tom saw him better, was younger than her, about 30, with sharp cheekbones and a relaxed confidence in his movements. Who the hell is he? Colleague? Client? Volume? Karen's voice drowned out the noise when he was a few steps away. She noticed him, her eyebrows raised slightly, and then a smile lit up her face. "Are you here? I didn't hear you call." "Yes, the phone is probably on silent," he said, trying to keep his voice even. His gaze slid to the man next to her. "Hello." Karen turned to her interlocutor. "Oh, Tom, this is Josh. Josh Cameron, our new data analyst. Josh, this is my husband, Tom." Josh extended his hand, smiling openly, but with a slight wariness, as if he sensed the tension. "Nice to meet you, Tom. Karen has talked a lot about you." "Is it true?" Tom shook his hand, more firmly than necessary. "And she doesn't say a word about you." Karen laughed, touching Tom on the elbow. "Well, I won't tell you about every new employee. Josh has only been with us for a couple of weeks, but he has already impressed everyone. His predictions for the latest project are pure gold. Yeah, I'm trying, Josh added modestly, scratching the back of his head. Karen is a great help in joining the team. Tom nodded, but his gaze lingered on Josh a little longer than it should have. He saw him glance quickly at Karen and then look away. The awkwardness was still in the air, just like after that hug. Or what was it? Maybe he's exaggerating. The light in the hall was dim, shadows played on their faces, and Tom suddenly felt like a stranger at this celebration of someone else's life. "Are you ready?" he asked Karen, trying to switch gears. "It's almost midnight." "Yes, of course," she answered, finishing the wine from the glass and putting it on the windowsill. "Josh, see you on Monday. Have a great weekend." "You too, Karen." "Nice to meet you, Tom," Josh said, stepping back and disappearing into the crowd. Karen took Tom's arm, her heels clicking on the marble floor as they walked towards the exit. "Thank you for stopping by. I thought about taking a taxi, but you are my savior," she said, clinging to him a little tighter. "You're welcome," Tom replied, but his voice was quieter than usual. He opened the door of the pickup truck, helped her get inside, and he walked around the car and got behind the wheel. The engine started with a soft growl, and they pulled out of the parking lot. Karen turned on the radio, and some old Fleetwood Mac hits filled the cabin. She leaned back in her seat, closing her eyes. "Tired?" Tom asked, without taking his eyes off the road. "Very. These parties are exhausting, but useful." The boss was in a good mood and even praised my latest deal. "Great," he nodded. "And this Josh, is he your protege?" Karen opened one eye and looked at him with a slight smile. "Protege? No, just a colleague. Smart guy, catches on quickly. Why are you asking?" "Just like that," Tom shrugged. "It looked like you had known each other for a long time." She chuckled, reaching into her purse to get her phone. "No, we just worked well together. He knows his business, and I appreciate professionals." Tom said nothing. The road stretched forward, the headlights picked out the wet asphalt. He remembered how Josh touched her back, how she didn't pull away. It didn't mean anything, did it? Just a corporate party, wine, and a relaxed atmosphere. But doubt small, sharp, like a splinter has already settled somewhere inside. He gripped the steering wheel a little tighter than necessary. "Are you okay?" Karen turned to him. Her voice became softer. "You look tense." "I'm just tired," he lied, glancing at her briefly. "Long day." "Then let's go home," she said, putting her hand on his knee. "We'll get some sleep tomorrow." "Yes," Tom nodded. "Let's get some sleep." But that moment on the terrace was spinning in his head, and he knew that sleep would not come soon. Tuesday morning dawned gray and dank. The sky over Maplewood was overcast, and a light rain drummed on the windshield of Tom's pickup truck as he drove through town. Karen's car had been in the garage for 3 days. Now something was wrong with the gearbox, and Tom volunteered to drive her to work and pick her up back. This was no problem for him. His store was 15 minutes from the Vanguard Solutions office, and his schedule allowed him to find time. Besides, Karen hated taxis, and he loved these short moments together, their little rituals in the bustle of her corporate life. He pulled into the familiar Vanguard parking lot at 5:52 p.m., a little earlier than usual. Karen wrote that she would be late for about 10 minutes. She needed to finish a report for tomorrow's meeting. Tom turned off the engine, turned on the radio to a soft blues wave, and leaned back in his seat, looking at the glass facade. People had already started leaving the office. Some were hurrying to their cars, others were opening umbrellas, talking with colleagues. Tom had gotten used to this view over the past few days, but today something in the air seemed different. Maybe it's just the weather. He noticed a familiar figure at the entrance, a short guy in a gray coat with light stubble and a backpack over his shoulder. It was Mike, Tom's old friend from college. Mike worked at Vanguard in the logistics department, and they had run into each other a couple of times at Karen's parties. Tom rolled down the window and waved his hand. "Hey, Mike, how are you?" Mike turned around, squinted through the rain, and smiled when he recognized Tom. He came closer, taking cover under the canopy of the building. Tom Miller himself. What, are you Karen's official chauffeur now? While her car is being repaired, yes, Tom chuckled, turning off the radio. How are you? Are you carrying all the loads? Yeah, loads and a headache, Mike rolled his eyes. Today we spent half a day sorting out the delivery of servers. How are you in your store? Are you still selling nails? Nails, boards, everything as usual, Tom answered, shrugging his shoulders. Stable, no surprises. Mike nodded, but his gaze slid to the side, towards the office windows, and he lowered his voice, as if he was going to say something that was not for everyone's ears. Listen, Tom, hasn't Karen been overworking lately? Saw her here late last night with this new guy, Josh. They were discussing something at her table, just like conspirators. Tom felt something stir inside him, but tried not to show it. He remembered that night at the office party Josh, his hand on Karen's back, their awkward hug. Several days had passed since then, and he tried not to think about it, blaming it all on fatigue and a couple of glasses of wine. But Mike's words hurt him. Josh, it's that analyst, right? He asked, trying to sound casual. She mentioned that he's smart. Sensible, that's for sure, Mike agreed, but some shadow flashed in his tone. It's just, well, they spend a lot of time together. Projects, reports, everything. People have already begun to whisper. Whisper? Tom raised an eyebrow, although his chest was already beginning to pound. Why whisper? Mike shrugged, clearly not wanting to go any deeper. Nothing serious, just gossip. Office stories, Karen is a star, everyone wants to work with her. And Josh, he's new, but already in the lead roles on her team. So they chat. Tom nodded, but Mike's words settled in his head like wet sand. He wanted to ask more, but then the phone on the seat vibrated. Message from Karen. I'm going down, 2 minutes. Okay, Mike, see you, Tom said, slapping the steering wheel. Don't get wet here. I'll try, Mike grinned, waving goodbye, and walked to his car. Tom watched him until he disappeared around the corner. They started whispering. He turned off the wipers, leaving raindrops running down the glass, and tried to push away the thought that this meant something. Karen has always been the center of attention at work. She is respected, and people are drawn to her. Josh is just another colleague. But why then did Mike mention him? And why did this sound like a hint? The office door opened and Karen came out, opening her umbrella. Her dark cloak glistened with moisture, and in her hands she held a bag with a laptop. She spotted a pickup truck, waved, and quickly walked toward it, trying not to step in any puddles. Hello, Savior, she said, climbing into the salon and shaking off the drops from the umbrella. The weather is a nightmare. Yeah, Tom agreed, starting the engine. How is the day? Crazy, Karen sighed, throwing her head back. A report for the boss, then another call with the client. I barely escaped. Saw Mike at the entrance, Tom said as he pulled out of the parking lot. He says you sat up late yesterday. Karen nodded, not taking her eyes off the window. Yeah, I had to check the data. We have a deadline tomorrow, but without exact numbers, it's impossible. Have you checked with Josh? He asked, trying to make it sound like a normal question. She turned to him, frowning slightly. Yes, with Josh. He's an analyst. That's his job. And what? Nothing, Tom shrugged. Mike just mentioned that you two were plotting there. Karen laughed, short and light. Conspiracies? Oh yes, we are planning to take over the world via Excel spreadsheets. Mike likes to exaggerate. Tom smiled, but Karen's laughter did not melt the lump in his chest. He was silent as they drove through the wet streets, listening to the rain patter on the roof. Maybe Mike really was exaggerating. Office gossip is common, but something in her tone, in the way she quickly dismissed it, made him think. The next day, Tom picked her up again. The car was still in service. The mechanic called in the morning and said that the spare part was delayed until Friday. Karen didn't mind the rides, and Tom didn't argue. He even liked meeting her after work, seeing her come out of this glass anthill, tired but still collected. But today he decided to go inside and buy coffee from the cafeteria on the first floor while he waited. The cafeteria was small, with white tables and the smell of freshly brewed espresso. Tom ordered an Americano and sat by the window, watching the Vanguard employees pass by. Some nodded at him. He had already become a familiar figure these days. A couple of minutes later, a woman of about 40, with short blonde hair and wearing a strict gray suit, approached the counter. Tom remembered her. I think her name was Linda. She was from the marketing department. They met at the same corporate event. Tom, right? She said, noticing him and walking closer with a latte in her hand. Karen's husband? Yes, exactly. He nodded, shaking her hand. Linda, right? I guessed it, she smiled, sitting down opposite him without invitation. Are you here behind her, like a faithful knight? While the car is being repaired, I have to, he answered, taking a sip of coffee. How are you? Still selling their software? I sell, I advertise, I make everyone believe that this is the best in the world. Linda chuckled. This is the job. And your Karen is great, you know. The latest deal with that startup, that's all everyone is talking about. She's trying, Tom said, feeling a little proud. Loves his job. Oh yes, Linda agreed, but her smile became a little sharper. And they worked great with Josh. These two are just like water, together all the time either in the meeting room or at her table. The boss even joked that they were now a duo, like Bonnie and Clyde. Tom froze with a cup at his lips. Linda continued to speak, but her words sounded like cotton wool. Don't spill the water. Together all the time. He put the coffee on the table, trying not to show how hooked he was. Well, she said he's smart, he said, shrugging his shoulders. Helps with projects. Smart is not the right word, Linda said, leaning closer. The guy has a brain like a computer, and Karen knows how to guide such people. But, you know, people are already joking that he is her shadow. Follow her everywhere. They even sit together at lunch. Tom nodded, but something sank inside. He remembered Karen mentioning Josh, always in passing, as a colleague. But now this, together, sounded different. Linda looked at him as if waiting for a reaction, and he forced himself to smile. Office gossip, huh? He said, trying to joke. It's like in a TV series here. You bet, Linda laughed, but her eyes remained attentive. Just an observation. Karen is awesome, don't think so. It's just, well, Josh is this one, he knows how to adapt to her. She finished her latte, stood up and patted him on the shoulder. Okay, I'll run. See you, Tom. Yeah, see you later, he replied, looking after her. When Linda left, Tom remained sitting, twirling the cup in his hands. Linda's words mixed with what Mike said yesterday. Lots of time together. Don't spill the water. He didn't want to believe the rumors, it's just talk, right? But the pain in his chest grew, and he found himself looking at the elevator from which Karen was about to leave with some new feeling. Uncertainty. Karen came down 15 minutes later, her footsteps echoing in the hall. She spotted Tom in the cafeteria and waved, smiling. Are you inside? This is a service, she said, approaching. Did you buy me coffee? I can buy it, he answered, standing up. How is the day? Okay, she said, straightening her bag. Tired as a dog. Let's go home. They walked out to the pickup truck, and Tom opened the door for her. As she sat down, he glanced at the office windows, where the lights were still on. Josh was out there somewhere, or it wasn't. He didn't know. But the rumors were already sounding in his head, like whispers that he couldn't get rid of. Tom was sitting in the living room, staring at the TV, where some old action movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger was playing. Explosions thundered on the screen, but he did not hear them. The sound was at a minimum, and his thoughts were somewhere far away. The clock on the wall showed 22:13. Karen hasn't returned yet. She called 2 hours ago and said that she would be late an urgent call with a client from California. There was a time difference. Nothing could be done. Her car was already at home, picked up from the service in the morning, but she left by taxi because she didn't want to drive after a long day. Tom nodded into the phone and said, "Okay, see you later," but when he hung up, something inside him sank. He leaned back on the couch, rubbing his neck. The last few days, everything was as usual. She went to work, he went to the store, in the evening they had dinner together, chatting about little things. But after that corporate party, after the words of Mike and Linda, her every step began to seem suspicious to him. Tom hated this feeling sticky, heavy, like wet sand in his shoes. He didn't want to be that kind of husband. I didn't want to suspect. But the thorn that had been lodged in him since that awkward hug with Josh grew, and now he found himself remembering things that he had not paid attention to before. For example, delays. They started a couple of weeks ago, not every day, but more often than before. Urgent report, negotiations have been delayed, the boss has called for a meeting. Tom always took it for granted Karen was building a career, and he was proud of her. But now he remembered how she came home later than she promised, with a slight blush on her cheeks, chalking it up to cold or fatigue. Or how one day, about 3 months ago, she returned at midnight, smelling not only of her perfume, but also of something else, cigarette smoke, although she herself did not smoke. Colleagues were smoking in the meeting room, she said then, throwing her bag on a chair and going into the shower. He believed. Now I wasn't sure. Or correspondence. Tom never went into her phone, it was not in his rules. But he noticed how she began to keep his screen facing down more often, how quickly she closed chats when he entered the room. One day, a couple of weeks ago, he walked into the kitchen, and she was sitting at the table, typing something with a smile, that soft, almost personal smile that he had not seen directed at himself for a long time. "Who are you writing to?" he asked then, pouring water. "To a colleague at work," she answered, and the screen immediately went dark. He did not elaborate. But in vain, he thought now. And more refusals. This was the most painful thing to remember. Their intimacy was always something natural, warm, even after 12 years of marriage. But in recent months, something has changed. Not sharply, not obviously, but he felt it. Sometimes she turned away when he reached out to her in bed, muttering, "I'm tired, Tom, let's do it tomorrow." Sometimes she agreed, but she was somewhere not with him, her body was nearby, but her thoughts were far away. He chalked it up to stress and her workload. But now, sitting in the dimness of the living room, he asked himself, what if this does not work? What if it's someone else? Tom stood up and walked around the room, trying to get rid of these thoughts. But they clung like burrs. Josh. His name came up again and again in Mike's words, in Linda's hints, in that scene on the terrace. Young, smart, confident. "Don't spill the water," Linda said. Tom clenched his fists, feeling jealousy hot, bitter rising in his throat. He didn't want to believe the rumors. He didn't want to think that Karen, his Karen, could. But he had to know. Her bag was lying on the kitchen table. She left it in the morning, taking only her wallet and keys when she left in a taxi, and her phone was left with the bag. Tom stood in the kitchen doorway, looking at the black leather bag like it was Pandora's box. He never went through her things. It would be a betrayal not of her, but of himself. But now his legs took a step forward on their own. Then another one. He stood over the table, his heart pounding so hard it was ringing in his ears. "You're crazy," he said to himself, but his hand was already reaching for the lightning. He opened the bag carefully, as if there might be a bomb inside. The phone lay on top, the black screen reflecting the light of the lamp. Tom took it, his fingers trembling slightly. He knew the code 0712, their wedding day. She hasn't changed it for years. He entered the numbers, and the screen lit up. The main menu looked familiar. Application icons, a photo of their dog buddy on the screensaver. Tom opened the messages. There were the usual chats, her sister, a couple of friends, himself, the last message from him, "See you later." But below was a chat with the name Josh K. Tom froze, looking at him. The last message was sent today at 1943. Call at 21 o'clock. Don't forget the data on Q3. Karen's answer. Already ready. See you soon. Nothing strange. Job. He scrolled up. There have been messages almost every day for the past 2 weeks. Mostly short, businesslike. Check the table on page 5. The boss wants to discuss this tomorrow. Send me the presentation. But there were others too. You saved me at the meeting today, thank you. From Josh, 3 days ago. Karen replied, just do your job and I won't have to save you. With a smiling emoticon, Tom clenched his teeth. This was not what he was looking for, not a confession, not a love note. But this smiley, she rarely used them, even him. He closed messages and opened social networks. Karen used LinkedIn mostly for work, for connections. Tom went to her profile through the application. There were posts about Vanguard's achievements, photos from conferences, and comments from colleagues. He scrolled down, looking for something from Josh, and I found it. A week ago, Josh wrote under her post about the new deal. Great job, Karen. You are the brains of the team. She replied, thanks, Josh, but this is a team success. Nothing special, but there were more comments from him than from others. He liked almost everything she posted. Tom felt the blood rush to his face. He turned off the phone, put it back in his bag, and walked to the sink, turning on the water to wash his face. Cold drops ran down his cheeks, but could not wash away what he felt. This was not proof, not evidence, but this was enough for the poison of suspicion to take root deeper. He remembered how she laughed with Josh at the office party, how she closed chats, how she turned away in bed. Everything was adding up to a picture he didn't want to see. The headlights flashed through the window as the taxi pulled up to the house. Tom wiped his face with a towel, turned off the water, and returned to the living room, trying to breathe evenly. The door opened and Karen walked in, brushing raindrops off her raincoat. Hi, she said, throwing the keys on the table by the entrance. Are you awake? I was waiting for you, he answered, his voice slightly hoarse. How was the call? Okay, she said, taking off her shoes. The client was happy, but he exhausted me to zero. I'll go take a shower and sleep. She walked past, touching his shoulder with a slight gesture. Tom watched her as she walked up the stairs. Her phone lay in her bag, silent, but now it seemed alive to him, the keeper of secrets that he did not yet know. Jealousy burned him from the inside, and he realized that this was just the beginning. Tom went to bed later, after Karen had already fallen asleep. He lay on his side of the bed, staring at the ceiling, his thoughts spinning like a broken record. He recalled how she once refused to go with him to the lake for the weekend. She said that she needed to finish the project. This was last month. He went alone, and she stayed. With whom? With Josh? Or was it an excuse? He remembered her smiles, her fatigue, her detachment. Everything that previously seemed small now looked like part of something bigger. The next day, he went through her phone again. This was in the morning while she was in the shower. He picked it up from the kitchen table where she had left it charging and quickly scrolled through the messages. Nothing new from Josh, just work correspondence. But he noticed that some old chats had been deleted. The ones he saw yesterday were gone. My heart began to pound. Is she hiding something? Or is it just clearing memory? He didn't know. He opened her Instagram. She rarely sat there, but still. Josh was subscribed. His account was full of photos from conferences, coffee shops, and rare personal photos. Tom found one photo Josh in the office, at a table with papers, with the caption, "Late hours with the best team." Karen liked it. This was 3 days ago. Tom clutched the phone until his knuckles turned white. When Karen came down, he was already sitting with his coffee, pretending to read the news on his phone. "Good morning," she said, pouring herself a cup. "You got up early." "I couldn't sleep," he answered without looking at her. "Are you late today?" "I hope not," she said, sitting down opposite him. "But if anything happens, I'll warn you." With Josh again? He burst out, and he immediately regretted it. Karen froze, looking at him over her cup. "What do you mean, again? We're a team, Tom. You know." "I know," he nodded, forcing himself to smile. "Just kidding." She looked at him for another second, then smiled back. "You're strange this morning. Take a nap during the day, okay?" "Okay," he said, but everything was boiling inside. As the days passed, Tom sank deeper and deeper into his suspicions. He checked her phone whenever he could, looked for Josh on her social media, and listened to her words. Every time she was late, he asked himself, with him. Every time she closed the chat, he saw it as a secret. Jealousy became his shadow, and he didn't know how to stop. The morning started quietly. It was lightly raining outside the window, drops were knocking on the windowsill, and the house smelled of freshly brewed coffee. Karen sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through something on her tablet, her hair pulled back into a messy bun. Tom stood at the stove, frying eggs, their usual weekend ritual. But everything was seething inside him. In recent days, he was silent, keeping his suspicions to himself, but they accumulated like water behind a dam. Every word, every look now seemed like evidence to him. He checked her phone, social networks, caught snippets of conversations, and found nothing concrete. But this only angered him more. If there is nothing, why does he feel this way? Are you going to the store today? Karen asked without looking up from the screen. Yes, we need to check a couple of orders, Tom answered, turning the eggs in the pan. His voice was level, but his chest was pounding. And you? I'll stay at home, she said, stretching. I want to rest. Maybe we can watch a movie in the evening. Okay, he nodded, but his thoughts were already drifting to Josh. Yesterday, Karen returned at 9, saying that she was delayed because of the report. He didn't ask with whom. I didn't want to, but now it came out on its own. Did you sit with Josh again? He said, and immediately realized that the tone was wrong harsh, with subtext. Karen looked up from her tablet, her brow furrowing slightly. What? No, I was with Linda and the team. Why are you asking about Josh? Tom squeezed the spatula in his hand, feeling the damn crack. He could have brushed it off, said, just like that. But the words of Mike, Linda, that corporate party, her phone number, all this came up at once. Yes, because you're with him forever, he blurted out, turning to her. Every time you stay late, I hear about him. Mike, Linda, everyone just says that you and him are like Siamese twins. Karen froze, her eyes widening in surprise. She slowly placed the tablet on the table, as if she was afraid it would break. Are you serious? She said quietly, but tension was already ringing in her voice. What is this? An interrogation? No, not an interrogation. Tom threw the spatula on the counter, the fried eggs sizzling behind him. I'm just tired of guessing, Karen. You are with him all the time. At work, at corporate events, in correspondence. I'm not blind. She stood up, crossing her arms over her chest. Her face turned pale, but her eyes lit up a mixture of shock and anger. Correspondence. What, were you looking into my phone? The voice broke on a high note. Tom realized that he had let it slip. He didn't want to admit it, but it was too late to retreat. Yes, I did, he said, looking into her eyes. And what? You hide it, close chats when I'm around. Do you think I won't notice? Karen stepped back as if he had hit her. Her mouth opened slightly, but she was silent for a second, collecting her thoughts. Did you seriously check my phone? She said finally, slowly, as if tasting the words. Tom, this is my phone. My personal thing. Do you even understand what you did? Do you understand what it looks like? He retorted, raising his voice. You come late, laugh with him, hug at a corporate party. I saw you, Karen, on the terrace when he groped you. Paul? She almost shouted. Her arms fell along her body. What are you talking about? It was nothing. We just stood there, talking, and he didn't even really hug me. Are you going to look at my every step under a microscope now? What should I do when everyone around me is whispering? Tom stepped towards her, his voice trembling with emotion. Mike says you and he are plotting until late at night. Linda, you're a big deal. Even your boss jokes about you as a duet. Am I supposed to smile and nod? Karen shook her head, her face contorted with anger and pain. It's gossip, Tom, office gossip. People chat because they are bored. Josh is a colleague of mine. We work together, and yes, he's damn good at what he does. But there is nothing between us, nothing. Then why are you acting so strange? He did not retreat, feeling the poison of suspicion spilling out. Why are you closing your phone? Why are you refusing me in bed? Do you think I don't notice how distant you are? Karen froze, her breathing becoming heavier. She looked at him as if he were a stranger. I refuse, she said quietly, but there was steel in her voice. Are you seriously throwing this in my face now? Yes, I'm tired, Tom. I work 12 hours, carrying projects on myself so that we can live the way we do. And now you reproach me with sex? That's not the point. He slammed his palm on the table. The cups clinked. The fact is that you are somewhere not with me. You come home, and I see that you are thinking about something else. Or about someone. About someone. She stepped towards him. Her voice became louder. Are you implying that I have something with Josh? Say it straight, Tom, not Yuli. He clenched his jaw, feeling the words rushing out. Yes, I'm hinting, because everything points to it. You laugh with him, write him emoticons, and sit up late. And with me, I'm tired, let's do it tomorrow. How should I understand this? Karen laughed short, bitterly, without a drop of amusement. Smileys? Are you making a scene for me because of emoticons? Jesus, Tom, can you even hear yourself? I write to him at work because he is on my team. I laugh with him because he is a normal person, not because I sleep with him. Then prove it, he shouted, not expecting these words. Show me that I'm wrong, because I don't know what to believe anymore. She stepped back, her eyes shining with tears, but she held on. Prove it, she asked, her voice trembling. Do you want me to prove to you that I'm not cheating on you? After 12 years? You really don't believe this? I want to believe, he said, quieter, but with the same pain. But I see how you are with him. I see you leaving me. And I can't turn it off, Karen. I can't. She shook her head, wiping her cheek with the back of her hand. You're the one leaving, Tom. You came up with this for yourself. I didn't do anything. Nothing. Josh has a job. And you don't trust me now. How to trust when you are hiding? He raised his voice again. The phone is facing down. You close chats. It's too late to go home. Have you ever said, Tom, this is what's going on? No, you just remain silent, and I have to guess. I'm not hiding, she shouted back. I just live my life. I have a job, I have responsibilities, and yes, I am sometimes busy. But that doesn't mean I'm betraying you. You screwed yourself up because of some rumors, and now you blame me for it. Rumors don't come out of thin air, he retorted. People see you together. They see how he sticks to you. And I saw it, Karen. At that corporate party. This wasn't just a talk. Yes, as much as you can about this corporate event. She slammed her hands to her sides. It was a moment, second. He didn't paw me, didn't hug me, nothing like that. You made a movie in your own head, and you prove that I'm wrong, he repeated, feeling his voice break. Show me your phone. Tell me what's going on with it. If it's nothing, why are you so angry? Because you don't believe me, she shouted, her face red with anger. You're prying into my life, rummaging through my phone, accusing me of something that doesn't exist. I don't have to prove anything to you, Tom. I'm your wife, not a suspect, and I'm your husband, he said quieter, but with the same force. And I feel like I'm losing you. You may be angry, but I can't just swallow it. Karen looked at him, her chest heaving with heavy breathing. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she did not look away. You're not losing me, she finally said, her voice trembling. But you're pushing me. This, all of this. I didn't cheat on you. Not with Josh, not with anyone else. But if you don't believe me, I don't know what to do. Tom was silent. He wanted to believe her. I wanted her words to sweep away all doubts, like the wind sweeps away leaves. But they didn't dare. They sounded sincere, but the poison of suspicion had already taken root too deeply. He saw her tears, her anger, her pain, and still could not fully believe it. I don't know either, he said finally, turning to the stove. The scrambled eggs were burnt, and the smell of burning filled the kitchen. I don't know, Karen. She stood there for another second, then turned around and left the kitchen. Tom heard her footsteps fade away on the stairs and the bedroom door slam. He was left alone, looking at the frying pan where the black remains of breakfast were smoking. The first crack in their marriage was showing, and he knew he had caused it. But I couldn't stop. A week has passed since their quarrel, and the house has turned into a field of silent war. Karen slept in the bedroom, Tom slept on the sofa in the living room. They talked to each other only about the necessary things. Buy milk, I'll be late, dinner is in the refrigerator. Every word was taut, like a string ready to snap. Tom saw her tears that day, heard her assurances that there was nothing, but they did not drown out his doubts. On the contrary, the silence between them only added fuel to the fire. He looked at her when she didn't notice, looking for signs of fatigue in her eyes, a slight smile when looking at the phone, haste in her movements before leaving for work. Everything seemed like evidence to him. He couldn't live like this anymore. I couldn't guess whether to believe her or not, catch snippets of rumors and suffer. He needed facts, proof, and if Karen doesn't give them herself, he will find them in another way. The idea to hire a detective came at night when he was lying on the couch, looking at the ceiling, and the wind howled outside the window. At first he brushed her off. It was too much. Too crazy, too humiliating. But by morning the thought no longer seemed so wild. If she is clean, he will calm down. If not, he should know. Tom found him through an old acquaintance, Bill, the owner of the car service center where Karen's car was repaired. Bill once mentioned a guy who solves problems, an ex-cop, now a private investigator. No advertisements on the internet, no bright signs, just a name and number. Tom called on his lunch break, sitting in his pickup truck outside the store. "Hello," the voice on the other end was low, with a slight hoarseness. "This is Tom Miller," he said, trying to sound confident. "They gave me your number. Are you doing surveillance?" Pause. Then a short laugh. "Call me Ray." "Yes, I do surveillance. What do you need?" Tom swallowed, feeling his palms sweat. "My wife, Karen. I want to know where she goes, who she meets, especially with one guy, a colleague. Do you suspect her?" Ray's voice was businesslike, without judgment. "Yes," Tom admitted, and the word burned his throat. "I suspect." "Okay," Ray said. "Let's meet and discuss. Come to Jimmy's Diner on 5th and Oak in an hour. Bring a photo and 500 advance." "I will," Tom nodded and hung up. He sat in the car for another minute, looking at his reflection in the rearview mirror. The eyes are tired. The stubble is thicker than usual. He felt like a victim, a person who had been betrayed, whose life was falling apart because of other people's secrets. But at the same time, the hunter woke up to him. He will find the truth. He will prove to himself that he is not crazy, or he'll find out the worst. Either way, he will know. Jimmy's Diner was an old place with worn red couches and the smell of frying bacon. Tom walked in with an envelope of money in his pocket and a photo of Karen printed out from their last trip to the lake. She smiled in the photo, the wind ruffled her hair. He chose this shot because it was clear, but now he regretted it. It was painful to look at her smile. Ray sat in a corner booth, lazily stirring his coffee. About 50 years old, with short gray hair, a leather jacket, and a face that looked like it was carved from stone. He looked up as Tom approached and nodded toward the empty seat. "Miller, right? Sit down." Tom sat down, placing the envelope on the table. "Here, photos and money." Ray took the envelope, looked inside, then pulled out a photograph. His eyes scanned Karen's face. "Beautiful," he said without emotion. "Name, job, habits. Tell." Tom cleared his throat, trying to speak evenly. "Karen Miller. Works at Vanguard Solutions, project manager. He leaves at 8 in the morning, usually returns by 7, but lately he has been delayed. He drives a black Honda CR-V. We live at 14 Elm Street in Maplewood." "And the guy?" Ray took out a notepad and began to write. "Josh Cameron." Tom clenched his fists under the table. "Analyst at her company. Young, tall, dark hair. They spend a lot of time together. I want to know if they date outside of work." Ray nodded without looking up. "How many days to watch?" "A week," said Tom. "Maybe more if necessary." 1,000 for a week, plus expenses. Ray closed the notebook. "Report every evening photos, places, times. If it's something serious, I'll call you right away. Is it coming?" "It's coming," Tom nodded, feeling his stomach tighten. "Just be careful. She shouldn't know." It's my job, Ray chuckled. Nobody will notice anything. I'll start tomorrow. Anything else? Tom shook his head. No, just find out the truth. Ray put the envelope in his pocket and stood up. I'll find out. See you in a week, Miller. He left, leaving Tom alone with his cooling coffee. Tom looked into the cup, feeling a mixture of relief and shame. He did it. Crossed the line. There was no turning back now. The first report came the next evening. Tom was sitting in his store, in a small office behind the counter, when the phone vibrated. Message from an unknown number. Day 1. Photo in the application. He opened the attachments. Karen left the office at 6:45 p.m. alone with a bag slung over her shoulder. The second photo is of her getting into the car in the parking lot. Third, she goes to the supermarket in half an hour. Text, I returned home at 1940. No meetings. Tom exhaled, but the tension did not go away. It was only the first day. He wrote to Ray, thank you. Continue. The answer came a minute later. It will be done. On the second day, Karen was late. Photos showed her outside Vanguard at 8:12 p.m., standing with two co-workers, Linda and a man Tom didn't recognize. Josh wasn't there. She arrived home at 20:50. Ray wrote, conversation with colleagues, nothing personal, without Cameron. Tom nodded to himself, but the feeling that she was hiding something did not disappear. She could have been more careful. She could have known what he suspected. On the third day, he saw Josh. The photo arrived at 9:03 p.m. Karen and Josh were leaving the office together. She was carrying a folder. He was carrying a backpack. They stood by her car, talking. In the next photo, Josh was laughing and Karen was smiling the same soft smile that Tom had seen in her correspondence. Ray wrote, we talked for 7 minutes and went our separate ways. She's home at 21:20. He left in a taxi. Tom enlarged the photo, peering into their faces. It wasn't a date, not evidence, but that smile, it cut him like a knife. He felt like a victim, a person whose life depended on the actions of others, on what he could not control. Karen was his wife, his support, and now he doubted her every move. But at the same time, he was a hunter. He searched for the truth, drove it into a corner, and this gave him a strange satisfaction. If she's guilty, he'll catch her. If not, he will prove to himself that he was wrong. But he didn't know yet, and it was tearing him apart. On the fourth day, Karen left home early. She said that she was going to a meeting with a client in a neighboring city. Tom didn't ask for details, but wrote to Ray, watch especially today. The report came late at 22:47. Photo, Karen in a cafe with Josh at a table by the window. They sat close, papers and coffee lay in front of them. She showed him something on the tablet. He nodded. Ray wrote, meeting at the Bean House Cafe from 1930 to 21:15. Cameron was present. Work papers, business conversation. Home at 21:40. Tom looked at the photo until the screen went dark. Close. Too close. Did it work? Or a cover? He didn't know. But the feeling that she was hiding something, not evidence, but herself, her thoughts, her feelings became unbearable. He was the victim of her silence and the hunter of her truth. And he won't stop until he finds out everything. Sunday morning was clear, with no rain for the first time in a week. The sun streamed through the curtains, leaving streaks of gold across the wooden kitchen floor. Karen stood at the stove, humming something under her breath, an old Beatles song they had loved in the early years of their marriage. She was making pancakes, a rare gesture in their busy routine. Tom sat at the table, leafing through the newspaper, but did not read. His gaze slid over the lines, not clinging to the meaning. He heard her voice, saw her movements, but inside everything was frozen. After their quarrel, after the detective, he could not look at her as before. Every step she took seemed like a game to him. Will you have syrup or jam? Karen asked, turning around with a spatula in her hand. Her smile was soft, almost timid, an attempt to break through the wall that had grown between them. With syrup, Tom answered briefly, without looking up. His voice was smooth, but cold, like an autumn wind. Karen nodded, returning to the stove. She clearly tried. Last night, she suggested going to the cinema, but he refused, citing fatigue. At night, she moved closer to him on the sofa, putting her hand on his shoulder, but he tensed and stood up, muttering something about tea. She didn't argue, didn't press, but Tom saw her look confused, full of questions. She wanted to get closer, to return to their old life. But he couldn't. I didn't believe it. He watched as she placed a plate of pancakes in front of him, as her fingers lingered slightly on the table next to his hand. It was innocent, but a thought flashed in his mind. She is playing. He wants to distract me. He saw evidence everywhere. Yesterday, she received a text while they were having dinner and quickly put her phone away, saying, "Work." But he noticed how her lips twitched into a slight smile. Josh, or someone else, he didn't ask, but the poison of suspicion had already taken its toll. "Are you okay?" Karen asked, sitting down opposite with a cup of coffee. Her voice was cautious, as if she was treading on thin ice. "Yes, okay," he answered, cutting off a piece of pancake. He didn't look at her, concentrating on the food, although he couldn't taste it. "You're kind of quiet," she said, stirring the coffee with a spoon. "I thought pancakes would cheer you up." "They will," he said, but his tone remained icy. "Thank you." Karen sighed, putting her cup down. "Tom, listen. I know it's still strange after that fight. I don't want it to be like that. Let's talk. Normal, no screaming." He looked up and their eyes met. Her face was open, sincere or so it seemed. But he saw only shadows, her smile at Josh in the photo from the detective, her closed phone, her aloofness. "Does she want to talk? Or cover your tracks?" "What to talk about?" he said, putting down his fork. "You said yours. I'm mine. Everything is clear." "Nothing is clear," she objected, leaning closer. "You walk like a shadow. I'm trying to reach you, but it's like you hate me." "I don't hate you," he said, but the words sounded empty, just busy with thoughts. "What thoughts?" Her voice became a little sharper. "Tom, tell me, what's happening? Are you still thinking about Josh?" He froze. She said his name herself. It was like a trigger. He could have lied, but the cold inside pushed the truth out. "What do you think?" he said, looking into her eyes. "You are with him every day. You smile at him. You write to him. And to me, I'm tired. How do I turn this off?" Karen leaned back, her face pale. "Lord, Tom, again? I told you it's work. Nothing more. Are you going to count my every smile now?" "Not every one," he retorted. "Only those that are not for me." She shook her head, her fingers gripping the edge of the table. "This is not normal. You see something that isn't there. I'm trying to be with you, but you push me away. What should I do to make you believe?" "I don't know," he said, standing up. "Maybe we should stop hiding." He left the kitchen, leaving her sitting with the cooling pancakes. She did not call out to him, and this only strengthened his suspicions. If she were innocent, she would have fought, he thought. But she is silent, so he's hiding it. That same day, Tom decided to go further. The detective gave him facts, but not feelings. Photos and reports showed where Karen was, with whom, but not what she thought, what she wanted. He needed a different approach. The idea came while he was scrolling through his phone while sitting in a store. His old friend, Steve, was the one who could help. Steve is tall, charming, with light gray hair and a smile that makes women go crazy. They had been friends since school, and Tom knew that Steve would not refuse out of old friendship. He called him at lunchtime, standing at the display case with tools. "Steve, this is Tom," he said when he answered. "Hey, old man, how are you?" Steve's voice was warm, as always. "Haven't heard from you for a long time." "Okay," Tom lied. "Listen, I need help. By old friendship." "Anything," Steve said. "What happened?" Tom hesitated, feeling his throat tighten. "It's about Karen. I think she's lying to me. About one guy from work. I want you to check it out." "Did you check?" Steve chuckled. "What are you talking about, brother?" "Flirt with her," Tom blurted out. "Just see how she reacts. If she's clean, she'll blow you off. If not, I'll see." The pause on the other end was long. Then Steve cleared his throat. Tom, are you serious? This is your wife. Are you sure? I'm sure, he said, although everything inside was screaming to the contrary. Just do it. Please. Steve sighed. Okay, by old friendship. How will we arrange it? Come to us tomorrow, said Tom. Let's say you came in by accident. I'll go on business and leave you. Just try it. Okay, Steve agreed. But if she sends me, don't be offended. I won't be offended, Tom said and hung up. He felt like a scoundrel, but also a hunter. This was his chance. If Karen pushes Steve away, he might start to trust her. If not, he will know the truth. The next day, Steve arrived at their house around 3. Tom opened the door and shook his hand, trying not to show his tension. It's good to see you, he said, patting Steve on the shoulder. Come in. Karen walked out of the living room, wiping her hands on a towel. She was wearing jeans and a light sweater, her hair down. Steve, she was surprised, smiling. What destinies? Yes, I was passing by, Steve said, smiling widely. I think I'll drop by to see some old friends. Won't you send me away? Of course not, Karen said, motioning him into the living room. Would you like some coffee? With pleasure, Steve nodded, glancing at Tom. Tom nodded in response, feeling his heart pounding. I'm going to the store for an hour, he told Karen. We need to check the invoices. You can chat here. Okay, she said, looking at him with slight surprise. Don't be late. He left, slamming the door, but did not go to the store. He parked around the corner from where he could see the living room windows. Steve had to start. Tom waits, gripping the steering wheel. An hour later, he returned. Steve was sitting on the sofa. Karen was in the chair opposite, with a table with empty cups between them. She looked calm, even a little bored. Steve stood up when he saw Tom. Well, I ran, he said, stretching. Thanks for the coffee, Karen. Tom, see you. Bye, Tom nodded, walking him to the door. On the street, Steve turned to him, lowering his voice. I did everything as asked. He praised her sweater and said that she looked the best in the area. He even put his hand on the back of the sofa and moved closer. She smiled, but acted coldly. She said, Steve, don't change, but I'm married. And she moved away. Nothing, Tom. She didn't sell you out. Exactly? Tom asked, looking into his eyes. Exactly, Steve nodded. She didn't even bite. Strict, like a nun. Tom nodded, but nothing changed inside. Thank you, he said, out of old friendship. Steve left and Tom returned to the living room. Karen leafed through the magazine without looking at it. Steve hasn't changed, she said suddenly. Still the same womanizer. Yes, Tom chuckled. Flirted with you. She looked up, her eyes narrowed. I tried. I besieged him. And what? Nothing, he said, looking away. I just asked. She looked at him for another second, then returned to the magazine. Tom stood, feeling that suspicions had not gone away. She pushed Steve away, but it could have been a game. She's smart. She might know he was checking. The cold inside him only grew stronger. Tom sat in his pickup truck parked outside the house, clutching a bottle of whiskey in his hand. It was already dark. The clock on the dashboard showed 21:37. Karen left an hour ago, saying that she would meet with work colleagues, something about an urgent project. She seemed calm, even giving him a quick, "Don't wait up, go to bed," before slamming the door. But Tom couldn't sleep. I couldn't wait. His mind was like a taut string, ready to snap. The detective, the rumors, the check with Steve, all this gave him no rest. He wanted the truth, but every step she took only dragged him deeper into the quagmire of suspicion. He took a long sip of whiskey, feeling the warmth spread through his chest. Usually, he drank only rarely a couple of beers with friends, a glass of wine with Karen for dinner. But today, he bought a bottle at the store after work, without thinking why. Now it was half empty, and his thoughts were confused, becoming sharper, angrier. He saw her smile at Josh in those photos from Ray, heard her cold voice after a quarrel, felt her detachment. She's hiding something. He knew it, and he could no longer sit and wait for reports. He must see for himself. Tom started the engine, throwing the bottle on the passenger seat. He wasn't drunk, or so he told himself. Slight dizziness, heat in the throat, but his hands held the steering wheel firmly. Karen said she was going to the office, but he didn't believe it. It's too late for the office. Too suspicious. He decided to go after her, find her, and see her with his own eyes. If she's with Josh, he'll catch her. If not, he didn't know what he would do. He pulled out onto the road, heading towards Vanguard Solutions. The road was familiar, but in the darkness, it seemed alien. The headlights picked out the wet asphalt. The trees along the sides bent from the wind. The whiskey buzzed in his head, fueling his determination. He imagined her and Josh laughing close, like at that corporate party. The thought cut him like a knife, and he tightened his grip on the steering wheel. When he arrived at the office, her car was not in the parking lot. The building looked dark. Only the security light was on in the lobby. Tom frowned, turned off the engine, and got out, staggering from the wind. He walked around the parking lot, peering into the shadows. Nothing. She lied. His heart began to pound, a mixture of anger and fear rising in his throat. Where is she? With whom? He returned to the truck, picked up his phone, and opened the map app. She and Karen shared a geolocation, an old habit from the days when she was afraid of getting lost on business trips. He rarely checked, but now was his chance. A dot with her name flashed several miles from the office in Willow Park, a small green area on the outskirts of the city. Tom clenched his teeth. Park, at 10 o'clock in the evening. This is not a job. This is something different. He threw the phone on the seat and rushed there, whiskey boiling in his blood and his thoughts screaming. She's with him. He knew it. The park was the perfect place, quiet, secluded, out of sight. He imagined them together, and it was unbearable. He must see, should know. Willow Park was almost empty. Lanterns along the paths cast a dim light on the wet grass, and the benches stood as lonely shadows. Tom parked at the entrance, turning off his headlights so as not to attract attention. He walked out, the smell of rain and earth hitting his nose, mixing with the taste of whiskey. His steps were uneven, but he moved forward, staying close to the trees so as to remain unnoticed. He saw her car at the far end of the alley, a black Honda CR-V parked under an old oak tree. There was another car parked nearby, a gray Toyota that he didn't recognize. Tom froze, pressed against the tree trunk, his breathing heavy. He heard voices quiet, but familiar. It was Karen and Josh. They sat on a bench 10 meters away from him, under a lantern. Karen was wearing a raincoat, her hair glistening with moisture. Josh sat next to him, slightly hunched over, his hands on his knees. They didn't touch each other, didn't laugh, didn't hug. But they were together, late at night, in the park. Tom felt the blood pounding in his temples. He took a step closer, hiding behind the bushes so he could hear. I just don't know how to get through this. Josh's voice was low, broken. She took everything. The house, the dog. I can't even see her. Karen leaned towards him. Her hand lay on the back of the bench, but did not touch him. Josh, listen, she said softly. Divorce is hard, but you can handle it. You need time. Time, he chuckled, rubbing his face with his hands. I don't have time. I'm sitting in this damn apartment alone, and all I can think about is how I blew this. Tom froze, listening. Divorce? Is Josh getting a divorce? He didn't know this. Karen never mentioned it. But she is here, with him, at night, comforting him. It wasn't a date, it wasn't romance, or so it seemed. But why didn't she tell him? Why did you hide it? You didn't screw it up, Karen said, her voice firm but warm. It's not your fault that she left. It's her choice. And you are stronger than you think. Josh shook his head, looking at the ground. You don't understand. I thought we were forever. And now I don't even know who I am without her. You're the same Josh, she objected. Smart, talented. You will get through this. I've seen you handle projects that others would give up on. It's the same thing, step by step. Tom clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. She spoke to him the way she had spoken to him before, when he had lost orders at the store, when his father had died. It was her concern, her support. But now she was giving it to someone else. To Josh. At night, in the park, he saw Josh raise his head and look at her with gratitude. It wasn't romantic, but it was close. Too close. "Thanks, Karen," Josh said, his voice shaking. "You have no idea how much I need this now." "I imagine," she answered, smiling slightly. "I went through shit too. Just don't give up, okay?" Josh nodded, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. "I won't give up. You're right." They fell silent, sitting next to each other. Tom watched, feeling whiskey and anger mingling in his blood. This wasn't a date. She helped him. But why secretly? Why didn't you tell me? He saw her hand on the back of the bench, her soft tone, her smile, and it cut him more than if he had caught them in an embrace. She was sharing something with Josh that had previously been his alone. He wanted to go out, shout, and demand an explanation. But the legs did not move. Whiskey pulled him down. His mind was confused. He stepped back, tripping over a root and nearly falling. The noise made Karen turn around. "What is this?" she said, peering into the darkness. "Probably a squirrel," Josh shrugged without turning around. Tom held his breath, pressed against the tree. They didn't notice him. Karen stood up, stretching. "I'll go home," she said. "It's already late. Are you okay?" "Yes," Josh nodded. "Thank you for coming. Is it true?" "Call me if anything happens," she said, heading to the car. Tom waited for her to leave until Josh's gray Toyota disappeared into the darkness. Then he walked back to his pickup truck, staggering and collapsed in his seat. A bottle of whiskey lay nearby. He took it, but did not drink it. His hands were shaking. He saw the truth, or part of it. She didn't cheat. She helped. But this did not calm him down. She kept it from him, and that was a different kind of betrayal. He started the car and drove home, feeling on the edge between relief and new, even deeper doubt. The sky above Maplewood was clear, the stars shining through the branches of the bare trees. Tom returned home later than usual. The store was late with a delivery, and fatigue was pulling his shoulders down. He expected silence, a cold dinner in the refrigerator, and Karen already gone to bed. But when he opened the door, he was greeted by the smell of fried meat, soft candlelight, and quiet music, something jazzy, smooth, familiar. Karen stood at the kitchen island, pouring wine into 2 glasses. She was wearing a dress simple, dark blue, but elegant, emphasizing her figure. Her hair is loose, slightly curled, as she did in the early years of their marriage. The table was set, steaks on plates, salad in a glass bowl, candles flickering in the center. She turned around, noticing him, and smiled softly, with slight uncertainty. "Hi," she said, handing him a glass. "I thought we needed an evening together. This hasn't happened for a long time." Tom froze in the doorway, holding the keys in his hand. His gaze slid over the table, over her dress, over the candles. It was beautiful. This was what he once loved, her attempts to make their life warmer, more comfortable. But now he saw something else. She's trying too hard. After weeks of silence, after being followed, after everything he had seen in the park with Josh, this seemed less like a step towards him and more like a mask. An attempt to make amends. Distract him. "What is this?" he asked, his voice low, without a hint of joy. Karen frowned slightly, but the smile did not disappear. "Dinner," she said, shrugging. "Romantic evening. I wanted us to. Well, remember how it happens. Just you and me." Tom put the keys on the table by the entrance, slowly taking off his jacket. His eyes did not leave her, looking for a catch. She seemed sincere or acted so well that he almost believed it. But he knew better. It was not just an evening. It was a cover. He stepped into the kitchen, took the glass, but did not drink. "For what?" he asked, looking into her eyes. "Why what?" Her voice trembled, her smile began to melt.
This, he nodded at the table, at the candles. Why all this? What are you trying to prove?
Karen placed her glass on the table, her movements becoming more abrupt. "Prove? Tom, I'm not proving anything. I just want us to spend time together. What's strange about this?" The strange thing is that you suddenly decided to play the ideal wife, he said, his tone becoming colder. After everything, after your delays, after Josh, is this something I'd like to forget? Her face tensed, her eyes narrowed. She stepped towards him, crossing her arms. Josh? Josh again? Jesus, Tom, are you serious? I'm throwing a party for us, and you see it as… What? Conspiracy? Not a conspiracy, he retorted, putting the glass on the table with a light knock. Attempt to hush up. Do you think a couple of candles and a steak will make me forget how you run to him at night? Karen froze, her breathing becoming heavier. She looked at him as if she didn't recognize him. Do I run to him at night? She repeated slowly. What are you talking about? I'm not running anywhere, Tom. I'm working. I'm at home. I'm with you. What have you come up with now? I didn't make it up, he said, raising his voice. I saw you in the park with him at 10 in the evening. You sat there, comforting him, while I was going crazy, and you didn't tell me anything. Her eyes widened, and her mouth dropped open in shock. Were you following me? The voice broke on a high note. Tom, did you really do this? Yes, I did, he shouted, footsteps echoing across the floor as he came closer. Because you're lying to me. You said it was work, and I found you with him in the park. How should I understand this, Karen? She stepped back, her face pale, but her eyes lit up with anger. You found me with him because he's my friend, and he was feeling bad, she shouted. Josh is getting divorced. He's on the verge, and I just talked to him. This is not a secret, not treason, not something you made up for yourself. Friend? Tom laughed, bitterly, without fun. You sit with him in the park at night, smile at him, but not a word to me. This is not friendship, Karen. There's something more and you're hiding it. I'm not hiding anything. She slammed her palm on the table. The candles trembled. I didn't tell you because you already see the devil knows what in everything. You would have immediately decided that I was sleeping with him, like I am now, and would have started this circus, because you give me a reason. He stepped towards her, his voice trembling with emotion. You are with him everywhere, at work, in correspondence, in the park. And now this evening do you think I'll believe that it's just like that? It's your fault, and this is your way to get out. Karen shook her head, her tears glistening in the candlelight. Guilty, she said quietly, but with such force that he froze. Am I to blame for trying to save our marriage? Am I to blame for wanting you to look at me again as a wife and not as an enemy? Tom, you're the one ruining everything. He poked himself in the chest, his face red with anger. Is it me who runs around at night with my colleagues? Am I the one who closes my phone when you're around? Am I the one who moved away? Don't lie to me, Karen. You know what you're doing. I'm not doing anything, she shouted, her voice breaking. I love you, idiot. I arranged this evening because I was tired of your cold, of your suspicions. Do you see any guilt in this? You're crazy, and you are a liar, he barked, sweeping the glass off the table. Glass shattered across the floor, and the wine spread into a dark puddle. Do you think I'm blind? You and Josh are closer than you are with me. I saw how you talk to him, how you look at him. This is not friendship. Karen stepped back, her hands shaking. You saw me helping a man who was drowning, she shouted. He's going through a divorce, he's depressed, and I was there because he asked. And you spy on me, get drunk, accuse me of things that aren't true. It's you who's losing me, Tom. I'm losing you because you left. He hit the wall with his fist, the sound echoing throughout the kitchen. You went to him. You share with him what used to be mine. And you leave this performance to me so that I can shut up. She looked at him, tears rolling down her cheeks, but her voice became quieter, almost dead. Play? She repeated. This is not a performance. It's me. This is all I have left to reach you. But you don't want to hear. You've already decided that I'm to blame. Tom was breathing heavily, his chest heaving. He saw her tears, her pain, but they did not touch him. He saw only Josh, her smile in the park, her secrets. It was not an evening for them. It was a lie. If you wanted to get through, he said, his voice becoming hoarse, you wouldn't run to him. You should have told me, and you are silent, and this evening is just another game of yours. Karen wiped her face with her sleeve, her gaze blank. A game, she repeated. Okay, Tom, think as you wish. I'm tired of proving. She turned and walked away, her footsteps fading on the stairs. Tom was left alone among the candles, broken glass, and cooling dinner. Emotions burst out: anger, pain, fear. He wanted to believe her. I wanted this evening to be real, but he couldn't, and it tore his heart. The Vanguard Solutions Hall was decorated on a grand scale for a corporate event. Long tables with white tablecloths, garlands of light bulbs along the walls, a bar in the corner where they mixed cocktails to the rhythms of live jazz. Employees in suits and evening dresses laughed, raised their glasses, and congratulated each other on a successful year. Tom stood at the entrance, straightening the tie that Karen had insisted on wearing. He didn't want to go after their last quarrel. After the broken glass and her tears, it was easier for him to stay at home. But she said, "It's important for my job, Tom. Let's go together." Her voice was smooth, without a hint of warmth, and he agreed, although he knew that the evening would be difficult. Karen walked next to her, wearing an off-the-shoulder black dress, her hair styled in neat curls. She looked beautiful, as always, but her face was closed, distant. She didn't take his arm or smile at him when they entered. Silence hung between them, cold and sharp as a blade. Tom felt it, but didn't know how to break it. After that night in the kitchen, she no longer tried to get closer. She didn't cook breakfast, didn't offer him a movie, didn't touch his shoulder. She simply lived nearby, like a neighbor, not a wife. "Would you like a drink?" he asked as they approached the bar. His voice sounded hoarse and strained. "Yes, white wine," she answered without looking at him. "Thank you." He ordered wine for her and beer for himself and silently handed her a glass. She took it, nodded, and walked away to a group of colleagues, leaving him alone. Tom looked after her, feeling something shrinking inside. She was not openly angry, did not scream, but her cold was worse than any scream. He took a sip of beer, trying to push away this feeling, but it only settled deeper in his chest. The evening went on as usual. Karen's boss, a gray-haired man in an expensive suit, walked onto a small stage with a microphone to make a speech. Tom listened with half an ear, standing against the wall with a bottle in his hand. The boss spoke about the company's achievements, new projects, and thanked the team. Then he smiled and added, "And now a word to our stars of the year. Josh Cameron, come up here." Tom tensed, his fingers clenching around the bottle. Josh, in a dark shirt and jacket, with a tired but sincere smile, walked onto the stage, taking the microphone. The crowd cheered and someone shouted, "Go Josh!" Tom had seen him before at a corporate party, in a photo from a detective in the park. But now he looked different, less confident, more vulnerable. "Thanks," Josh began, clearing his throat. "I'm not a master of speeches, but this year has been difficult for me. Not only because of work, but also personal matters. And I want to say thank you to the team. You were all incredible. But especially," he paused, looking into the audience, "Karen Miller." "Karen, are you there?" Tom saw Karen look up, her eyebrows raised slightly. Her colleagues smiled and pushed her forward. She stepped closer to the stage, holding her glass. "Karen," Josh continued, his voice softening, "you were my rock. I was going through a divorce and it was hell. But you found time to listen, to support, even when I was at my lowest. You are not just a colleague, you are a true friend. Thank you." The hall burst into applause. Karen smiled shortly, discreetly, and raised her glass in response. Josh nodded at her, then stepped back to give way to the boss. People around began to whisper. Someone tapped Karen on the shoulder. Tom stood motionless, Josh's words echoing in his head. Divorce, support, friend. This was what he heard in the park, but now publicly in front of everyone. The truth she spoke about, but his heart did not move. He looked at her. She stood among her colleagues, accepted congratulations, but did not look for him. She didn't try to come up, explain, or prove. She was just there, separate from him. And it cut him more than he expected. He wanted to believe. "I wanted these words, friend. support to sweep away his suspicions like the wind sweeps away dust. But they didn't dare. He saw her smile at Josh, her care, her warmth, everything that he did not feel at home, and it was like a knife in the chest. Tom finished his beer, put the bottle on the table, and went to the window, looking at the dark city. He heard the truth, but it did not move him. Not because he didn't believe Josh, but because he couldn't forgive Karen for her silence, her secrets, her departure. She didn't cheat, he knew that now. But she moved away, and he himself pushed her towards this, and still couldn't accept it. Karen found him an hour later when the music got louder and people started dancing. She walked over holding a new glass of wine, her face calm but tired. "Are you okay?" she asked. Her voice was smooth, without emotion. "Yes," he lied, looking out the window. Josh spoke well. She nodded, taking a sip. "He's great. Been through a lot." "You helped him a lot," Tom said, and a hint of sarcasm flashed in his tone. Karen looked at him, her eyes narrowed. "Yes, it helped. And what?" "Nothing," he shrugged. "It's just. Everyone knows now. Except me until the last." She sighed, looking away. "Tom, I didn't hide it on purpose. You made a secret out of it yourself. I'm tired of explaining. I'm tired of guessing," he retorted, turning to her. "You could have told me, but you chose him." "I didn't choose him," she said quietly but firmly. "I supported my colleague. And you decided that this was betrayal." He was silent, feeling how her words hit the patient. She was right, but he couldn't admit it. Not now, not after everything. "Shall we go home?" she asked, putting the glass on the windowsill. "Yes," he nodded, and they left without saying another word. It was cold at home. Not physically, the heating was on, but inside. Karen silently took off her dress, changed into pajamas, and went to bed. Tom sat in the living room, looking at the empty couch where he had slept for the last few weeks. The silence weighed on him like a stone. He felt emptiness, not only hers, but also his own. She no longer tried to get closer. She didn't call him into the bedroom, didn't cook pancakes, didn't look at him with hope. She gave up, and that was the worst of all. He walked through the house, looking at their things, photos on the shelf, her books, his tools in the garage. Everything they built together now seemed alien. He ruined it. With your suspicions, your surveillance, your anger. Josh wasn't a threat, he was the one who broke everything. He realized this while standing in the dark, but didn't know how to fix it. The trust was gone, and he saw no way back. Tom sat down on the sofa, covering his face with his hands. The truth lay before him, but his heart was too frozen to accept it. And the house was silent, cold and empty, like his soul. Tom sat at the kitchen table, clutching a mug of cold coffee. He didn't sleep almost all night after the office party, after Josh's words, after their cold return home. He lay on the sofa, looking at the ceiling, and realized that this was no longer possible. The emptiness that settled between him and Karen became unbearable. He felt her every day in her silence, in her distant glances, in the way she no longer tried to reach him, and he knew it was his fault. He heard her walk down the stairs, her steps light but confident. Karen entered the kitchen, dressed in a business suit, a dark blue jacket and trousers, her hair pulled back into a neat ponytail. She didn't look at him, going straight to the coffee maker. Tom swallowed, feeling the lump in his throat getting heavier. He had to speak. "I had to say everything. If not now, then never." "Karen," he began, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep, "we need to talk." She froze, her hand stopping on the coffee maker button. Then she slowly turned around, crossing her arms over her chest. Her face was inscrutable, her eyes cold. "About what?" she asked, and there was not an iota of warmth in her tone. Tom stood up, pushing back his chair. His heart was pounding, but he forced himself to take a step closer. "About everything," he said, looking into her eyes. "About what I did. About how I didn't trust you." Karen was silent, her eyebrows raised slightly, but she did not answer. She just looked, and that look cut him more than any words. He took another step, his hands shaking, but he clenched them into fists so she wouldn't notice. I was watching you, he blurted out, and the words came out like a stone from a slingshot. I hired a detective. I myself followed you to that park. I I checked your phone, your social media. I didn't believe you, Karen. All this time I thought that you and Josh. He fell silent, waiting for her reaction. Anger, tears, screaming, whatever. But she didn't move. Her face remained motionless, only the corner of her mouth twitched slightly, as if she was holding something inside. The silence became thick, oppressive, and Tom felt his chest tighten. "Say something," he asked, his voice trembling. "Please." Karen turned away, turned on the coffee maker, and the sound of running water filled the kitchen. She stood with her back to him, her shoulders tense. Then she spoke, quietly but firmly. "What do you want to hear, Tom?" she said without turning around. "Why am I shocked? Why am I angry? Why did you betray me? This is already clear." He took a step towards her, but stopped when she raised her hand without looking at him. "Don't come closer," she said, and her voice became sharper. "I don't want this now." Tom froze, feeling the ground disappear from under his feet. He expected her anger, but not this icy silence, which was worse than a scream. He clenched his fists tighter, trying to find words. "I know what I did was terrible," he said, his voice deeper. "I was on the edge, Karen. I was going crazy thinking that you were lying to me. I saw you and Josh, I heard the rumors, and I couldn't stop. But I understand that I was wrong. I destroyed everything. I'm sorry." She finally turned around, her eyes sparkling, but there were no tears. She looked at him as if he were a stranger, and that was the most painful thing. "Sorry," she repeated, her voice almost a whisper. "You were following me, Tom. You hired a man to spy on me. You were going through my phone. You didn't just not trust, you decided that I was guilty without even asking me. And now you want forgiveness." "I didn't know what to do," he said, feeling despair rushing out. "You were silent. You didn't tell me about Josh, about his divorce, about the fact that you are helping him. I asked, and you closed your mind. Why didn't you tell me?" Karen pursed her lips, her gaze sharp as a blade. "Because these are not my problems to tell," she said, her voice cold and hard. "It was Josh's problem. His personal life, his pain. He trusted me, and I had no right to spread it around the world, even to you. It was not my right." Tom froze, her words hitting him like a slap in the face. He opened his mouth to protest, but she continued, not allowing him to get a word in edgewise. "He came to me because he had no one else to go to," she said, her voice becoming a little louder. "His wife left, took everything he had, and he was left alone. He didn't want the whole office to know about it, and I respected that. I listened to him and supported him because he is my colleague, my friend. But it's none of your business, Tom. It was none of your business." "Is it none of my business?" he asked, his voice breaking. "You are my wife, Karen. You sit with him in the park at night, comforting him, and I'm just supposed to nod and smile. You could have at least told me that he is in trouble, that this is not what I think. Did you give me a chance?" she retorted, stepping towards him. "Have you ever asked normally, without accusations? No, you immediately decided that I was cheating. You didn't talk to me, you spied, followed, rummaged through my things. How could I tell you if you had already judged me?" Tom stepped back, her words burning him like hot metal. He wanted to object, but couldn't. She was right. He didn't ask. He suspected, looked for evidence, and built his theories. But he still couldn't let go. "I was afraid," he said, his voice becoming quieter. "I was afraid that I was losing you. You were closer to him than to me. You smiled at him, but not at me. I saw it, Karen. I couldn't help but see." She shook her head, her gaze softening, but not from forgiveness, from fatigue. "I smiled at him because he was broken," she said. "But I didn't smile at you because you looked at me as if I were an enemy. You did it yourself, Tom. You built this wall yourself." He was silent, feeling her words settle in him like a heavy burden. He wanted to grab her hand, make her understand how sorry he was, but her gaze stopped him. "She won't forgive. Not now. Maybe never. I don't know how to fix this," he said finally, his voice almost a whisper. I know I'm to blame. I ruined everything. But I love you, Karen. I want us back. She looked at him for a long time. Her eyes sparkled, but she did not answer. Then she turned away, picked up her bag from the kitchen table, and headed for the door. I have to go to work, she said, her voice empty. Think about what you want, Tom. The door slammed, and he was left alone. Silence hit him like a wave, and he collapsed back into his chair, covering his face with his hands. He opened up to her, laid out everything that tormented him, but she did not accept it. She didn't forgive me, and he didn't know how to regain her trust because he had already lost his. Saturday began with rain light but persistent, pattering on the roof and running down the windows, blurring the world outside. Tom sat in the living room, leafing through an old renovation magazine, but his thoughts were far away. Several days have passed since his confession to Karen about surveillance, and nothing has changed. She didn't scream, didn't blame, but didn't forgive either. Her silence became a wall that he could not break through. She went to work, returned late, prepared dinner in silence, and her every glance was cold, distant. He tried to talk, asked about her day, offered to help, but received only short, "Everything is fine," or "Thank you, I can handle it." She was leaving him, and he felt it in every cell. The doorbell knocked him out of his thoughts. He stood up, throwing the magazine on the sofa, and went to open it. Standing in the doorway was Mark Haley, an old family friend, tall, with dark hair touched with gray and a slight smile that always seemed warm. He and Karen had been friends since school, and Mark visited them often in the early years of their marriage. Then he went to Boston for work, and the connection weakened, but Tom remembered him as an open, reliable person. Mark was holding an umbrella that was dripping with water and a small bag in his other hand. "Tom, hi," he said, shaking drops from his umbrella. "Long time no see. Is Karen home?" Tom nodded, stepping back to let him in. "Yes, upstairs. Come in." Mark walked into the hallway, leaving his umbrella by the door, and handed over the package. "I brought some wine from Boston. I thought I'd pop in for a while since I was in town." "Thank you," Tom said, taking the package. "She will be glad to see you." He shouted upstairs, "Karen, Mark has arrived," and heard her footsteps on the stairs. She came down, dressed in jeans and a loose sweater, her face lit up with surprise and then a smile. Real, not the tense one that she gave him lately. "Mark," she said, quickening her pace. "Lord, how many years?" They hugged briefly, in a friendly way, but Tom noticed how her shoulders relaxed, how her voice became warmer. Mark laughed, patting her on the back. "Too much," he said. "You're still the same, but I'm already an old man." "Don't be too poor," she chuckled, retreating. "What are you doing here?" "I came for work," Mark answered, taking off his jacket. "I decided to visit old friends. Tom, do you mind?" "Of course not," Tom said, although something stirred inside. He saw how Karen perked up, how her eyes lit up, and this was not for him. They walked into the living room, Karen offered coffee, and soon all three were sitting at the table. Mark talked about his life in Boston, about his new job at a law firm, about his son going to college, about how he misses the old days. Karen listened, smiled, and asked questions. Tom was silent, holding the mug in his hands, and watched. She laughed at Mark's jokes. Her voice sounded light, free in a way that it had not sounded with him for a long time. It was not false, not a game. It was Karen he lost. "Do you remember how we got stuck on that lake?" Mark said, taking a sip of coffee. "You tried to start the boat, but it just sneezed." Karen laughed, covering her mouth with her hand. "Oh, yes, and you shouted that we would drown, although the water was knee-deep. I was in a panic," Mark grinned. "You were always calmer than me." Tom looked at them, feeling the cold growing inside. They shared memories, their connection was alive, real, and he sat there like a stranger and couldn't get a word in edgewise. He saw how Karen was thawing with Mark, how her face lit up and it cut him. She didn't thaw out with him. She didn't laugh with him. She moved away, and Mark, without knowing it, became her new support. "How long will you be in the city?" Karen asked when the laughter died down. A couple of days, Mark answered. Maybe we can go somewhere, for old time's sake. That would be great, she said, and her gaze flickered to Tom. If Tom doesn't mind. I don't mind, he said, forcing himself to smile. But his voice was empty, and she noticed it. Her smile faded a little, but she didn't argue. Mark left an hour later, promising to call. Karen walked him to the door, and Tom remained in the living room, looking at the empty mugs. When she returned, he couldn't stand it. You're with him as before, he said, without looking at her. Karen paused, her brow furrowed. What do you mean? You're laughing, you're joking, he said, looking up. With him you are alive, but with me no. She sighed, crossing her arms. Mark is an old friend, Tom. I'm glad to see him. It doesn't mean anything. So, he objected, standing up. You are different from him. You are real with him. And with me you. You are like a shadow. Karen looked at him, her eyes tired. I'm not a shadow, she said quietly. I just don't know how to be with you after everything. Mark didn't follow me. He didn't suspect me. He's just my friend. These words hit him like a slap in the face. He wanted to answer, but she went into the bedroom, leaving him alone. And he realized that she was moving further and further away, not towards Mark, but from him. 2 days later, Karen met with Mark again. Tom found out about this by accident. She left the phone on the table, and he saw the message. Meet me at the old mill at 7. I'd be happy to chat. She didn't tell him. She left with a quick, I'll be back late, and he stayed at home, feeling the emptiness growing. He did not follow her. He could no longer cross this line. But he knew she was with Mark, and it was killing him. Not because he suspected an affair, he saw that it was friendship, but because she was looking for something in Mark that she did not find in him. He sat in the dark, looking at their wedding photo on the shelf. Karen was laughing in the photo, her hand in his. Now her hand was cold, her laughter was for someone else. He broke their trust, and she left not physically, but emotionally. Mark became her support, and he was just a shadow of the past, and he didn't know how to stop it. The rain stopped by Thursday evening, leaving behind damp air and puddles in the driveway. Tom sat in the kitchen, looking at the empty plate in front of him. He had prepared dinner, pasta and sauce, but was eating alone. Karen returned later than usual. Her steps in the hallway were heavy and tired. She threw her bag on a chair, took off her coat, and walked into the kitchen without looking at him. Her face was pale, her eyes dull, but there was something new in them, a determination that he had not noticed before. There's pasta if you want, Tom said, his voice quiet, almost timid. He tried to start a conversation, as he had been doing for the last few days, seizing on every opportunity. Karen nodded, but did not move towards the stove. She stood at the table, arms crossed, and looked at him for a long time, silently, as if collecting her thoughts. Tom felt a coldness in his chest. It wasn't just silence. It was the end of something. We need to talk, she said finally. Her voice was even, but there was a ring of steel in it. Tom clutched the mug in his hands, his fingers turning white. Okay, he said, looking up. Let's talk. She sighed, pushed back the chair, and sat down opposite, but did not relax. Her back was straight. Her hands lay on the table like a barrier. I can't do this anymore, Tom, she began, looking into his eyes. I'm tired. I'm tired of all this. From what? He asked, although he knew the answer. His voice trembled, but he tried to control himself. Because of your jealousy, she said, her words as sharp as a knife. From your control. Because you see me as an enemy, not a wife. I'm tired of fighting this. Tom opened his mouth to protest, but she raised her hand to stop him. No, let me tell you, she continued, her voice growing louder. You were following me. You hired a detective, went through my phone, spied on me in the park. You didn't trust me for a second, even when I told you the truth. And now you want everything to be the same as before. It doesn't work like that, Tom. He swallowed, feeling her words hit home. I know what I did, he said, his voice hoarse. I confess to you. I said I'm sorry. I'm trying to fix this, Karen. Why don't you give me a chance? She shook her head, her eyes sparkling, but there were no tears. Because trust has been destroyed, she said quietly but firmly. You didn't just doubt it. You've crossed the line. You made me a stranger in your world. I can't live with a person who sees me as a liar, even when I'm open. I don't see the lie in you now, he countered, leaning closer. I know I was wrong. I know Josh is not what I thought. You helped him, and I was an idiot. But I love you, Karen. I want us back. She looked at him. Her gaze was heavy, piercing. Love isn't everything, Tom, she said. Love doesn't work without trust, and you killed him. Do you think I don't see the way you look at me? Even now, after all your words, there is doubt in your eyes. You expect me to hide something again, and I can't stand it. Tom clenched his teeth and his hands shook. I'm not waiting, he said, raising his voice. I'm trying to believe. I hear you. I hear about Josh, about what you couldn't tell. But you were silent too, Karen. You could have told me something to stop me from going crazy. Why didn't you give me a chance to understand? Karen pursed her lips, her fingers clasped together on the table. Because you didn't ask, she replied, her voice becoming harsher. You were accused. You came to me with suspicions, with your, where were you? Who were you sitting with? You didn't say, Karen, tell me what's going on. You immediately decided that I was to blame. How could I open up to a person who had already sentenced me? I was afraid, he shouted, getting up from his chair. I was afraid that I was losing you. You were with him everywhere at work, in the park, in his problems, and with me you were cold, distant. What was I supposed to think? To think that I am your wife, she retorted, also standing up. That I don't run around with lovers, but just live my life. Yes, I helped Josh because he's my friend, and he was drowning. But I don't have to answer every step of the way to you, Tom. And you made a tragedy out of it, because you didn't talk to me. He stepped towards her, his voice breaking. You closed yourself off, and left me guessing. I saw how you smile at him, how you are alive with him, but not with me. How could I not be afraid? Karen stepped back, her eyes blazing with anger. How could I not close myself? She shouted. You looked at me like I was a criminal. Every time I was late, every time I picked up the phone, you were looking for evidence. I felt it, Tom. I felt that you didn't believe me, and it was killing me. I wanted to believe, he said, his voice trembling. I wanted you to tell me, Tom, it's not what you think it is. But you were silent. You left me alone with this, because I shouldn't have made excuses. She shouted back, her face turning red. I'm your wife, not a suspect. I didn't have to prove to you that I'm clean. You should have trusted me, not spied, not hired some people, not broken everything we had. Tom froze, her words echoing in his head. He wanted to object, but couldn't. She was right. He destroyed their trust with his own hands. But he still couldn't let go. I know I'm guilty, he said more quietly, sinking back into his chair. I know I went too far. But I didn't want to lose you, Karen. I was going crazy thinking you were leaving. I didn't know how else. She shook her head, her voice growing colder. You didn't know any other way because you didn't believe me, she said. You chose control over conversation. You chose suspicion over me. And now I don't know how to go back to what it was. We can go back, he said, leaning towards her. I can change. I'm already trying. I don't monitor or check anymore. I want to trust you. Give me a chance, Karen. Please. She looked at him, her eyes full of pain and fatigue. I don't see a way back, Tom, she said quietly. I fought for us. I arranged dinners, tried to talk, but you pushed me away. You saw the blame in everything, even when I opened up. And now, I'm just tired. Tired? He asked, his voice trembling. So you're giving up? After 12 years, are you just leaving us? I'm not quitting, she said, her voice becoming firmer. It was you who abandoned us when you decided that I was lying to you. I cannot live with a person who expects betrayal from me. I can't prove every day that I don't cheat, I don't hide, I don't leave. This is not life, Tom. He clenched his fists, feeling tears sting his eyes. I don't expect betrayal, he said, his voice breaking. I want you back. I know I was an idiot for ruining everything. But I love you, Karen. Tell me what to do. Tell me how to fix it. She was silent, looking at him, and this silence was the worst of all. Then she shook her head. "I don't know how," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "You broke something that words can't fix. Trust is not a button that can be turned on. I don't believe you will stop suspecting. And I can't live with this." "You don't believe me?" he asked, standing up again. "After I opened up to you, after I admitted everything. You don't even give me a chance." "Did you give me a chance?" she retorted, her voice getting louder. "When you were following me, when you thought I was with Josh, did you ever give me a chance to explain? No, you decided for me. You decided that I was to blame, and now I should just forget it." "I'm not asking you to forget," he said, his voice trembling. "I apologize. I ask you to give me time to prove that I can be better." Karen stepped back, her arms falling to her sides. "I don't know if I can forgive," she said. "You betrayed me, Tom. Not betrayal, but something worse. You betrayed my trust, and I don't see how to get it back." "We can try," he said, stepping towards her. "We can talk, work on it. I'm ready for anything, Karen. I don't want to lose you." She looked at him, her eyes empty. "I don't want to lose myself," she said quietly. "I'm tired of being under your gaze, tired of feeling guilty for what I didn't do. I want to live, Tom, but I can't be with you." These words hit him like a hammer. He froze, feeling his heart clench. "So that's it?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Are you leaving?" "I'm not leaving," she said, but her tone was distant. "Not yet, but I don't know what to do with you next. I don't see us the same as before." Tom collapsed back into his chair, covering his face with his hands. He wanted to scream, argue, beg, but the words were stuck in his throat. She stood in front of him, alive, but no longer his, and he knew that this was the end not of the marriage, perhaps, but of what connected them. "I love you," he finally said, looking at her through his fingers. "This is all I have left." Karen was silent, then turned and went into the bedroom. The door closed quietly, but the sound was louder than any scream. Tom was left alone in the darkness of the kitchen with cold pasta and a broken heart. She explained everything, and he heard every word, but he could not accept them. December came unnoticed, bringing with it the first snow. A thin layer of white covered the roof of the house on Elm Street, drowning out the sounds of the street, turning the world outside into a quiet, cold void. It wasn't any better inside. Tom sat on the living room floor, surrounded by boxes, old albums, and scattered photographs. The light of a single lamp fell on his face, highlighting his tired eyes and the stubble that he had not shaved for a week. In his hands, he held a photograph Karen on the shore of the lake, in a yellow sundress, laughing, her hair fluttering in the wind. It was their first summer together, 12 years ago. Everything was simple then. He heard her leave an hour ago. She walked into the living room with a suitcase in her hand, wearing a coat, her face calm but distant. She didn't scream or cry, she just said, "I'm going to stay with my sister for a while, Tom. I need to think." He didn't argue, didn't beg. He simply nodded, looking at the floor, and heard the door close behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. It was not the loud bang of the end, but a quiet exhalation, an end that he had seen for a long time, but did not want to accept. Now the house was empty. Her things disappeared from the bedroom: clothes, books, cosmetics on the nightstand. Only traces remained: a dent in the mattress where she slept, an empty hanger in the closet, the smell of her perfume that still hung in the air. Tom didn't know if she was gone forever or if it was temporary, but he felt that this was the end. His attempts, his confessions, his words of love, his promises to change were too late. He had lost her, and now he was picking apart their lives, sitting among the photographs that had once been their happiness. He put down the photo from the lake and took another: their wedding. Karen is in a white dress. He is in a suit that was harshly rubbing his neck. They stood in front of the old church, her hand in his, their smiles so wide that it seemed they could light up the whole world. Tom ran his finger over her face in the photo, feeling her throat tighten. Then he believed that it would be forever. He remembered how she laughed when he dropped a piece of cake on his shirt, how they danced in the rain after the ceremony because the musicians left early. This was their time, pure, without cracks. He put the photo aside and reached for the box, which contained hundreds of other photographs, letters, and little things. Here they are on the beach. Karen is sunbathing, and he is building a sand castle, which is immediately destroyed by the surf. She then called him a brilliant architect, and they laughed until the sun set. Here they are with Buddy, the dog. The puppy was chewing his shoe, and Karen was filming it on an old camera, her voiceover saying, "Tom, you lost this battle." He smiled, but the smile quickly faded. Buddy died 3 years ago, and now Karen is gone too. Tom stood up and walked around the room, his steps echoing loudly in the silence. He walked to the window, looking out at the snow-covered yard. There, near the old oak tree, they once hung a swing. Karen insisted, although they did not have children. "For us," she said, and they rocked there on summer evenings, drinking lemonade and talking about the future. He remembered her voice, her laughter, her warmth next to him. Where is it all now? He destroyed it with his own hands, with his jealousy, with his fear. She left because he didn't let her stay. He returned to the boxes and pulled out another album, their trip to the mountains 5 years ago. Karen on top of the hill in a red jacket, the wind blowing her hair. He was filming her, and she shouted, "Tom, look at the view." He looked not at the mountains, but at her. She was his view, his world. He remembered how they warmed themselves by the fire that night, how she clung to him, whispering, "I'm happy with you." He felt the same then. Now he felt only emptiness. Tom knelt down, his fingers trembling as he turned the pages. Here they are at Christmas, Karen in a sweater with reindeer, he with a guitar that he bought but never learned to play. She laughed at his attempts to play the chords and then sang herself, her voice as clear as a bell. Here they are in their new house, the first day they moved in, with boxes and pizza on the floor. She then said, "This is our castle, Tom." He replied, "And you are my queen." Where is this queen now? He closed the album, feeling tears burning his eyes. He hadn't cried since his father died, but now it was impossible to hold back. Tears rolled down his cheeks, falling onto the photographs, and he did not wipe them away. He lost her. Not because of Josh, not because of Mark, not because of anyone else. Because of myself. His suspicions, his control, his surveillance, all this poisoned their marriage like poison. She struggled, tried to regain the warmth, but he pushed her away, and now she's gone. Tom got up and went to the bedroom, where her smell still lingered in the air. He opened the closet, looking at the empty hangers. Her favorite dress, the blue one she wore to that romantic dinner, was gone. He remembered that evening, the candles, her smile, her attempt to reach him, and he saw guilt in this, a lie. He screamed, broke a glass, and accused her. She cried, but he didn't hear. Now he heard only silence. He sat down on the bed, clutching the sheet in his hands. Here they slept together, here they loved each other, here they made plans. He remembered how she woke him up in the morning, kissing his shoulder, how they whispered at night about stupid things. He remembered how she cried when Buddy died and how he held her, promising her that everything would be okay. Where is good now? He destroyed it. Tom went down to the basement where the old boxes were stored. He found one sign in her handwriting. Memories. Inside there were letters, postcards, tickets. Their life is in the little things. He pulled out the letter she wrote to him on their first anniversary. "Tom, you are my home. Thank you for choosing me." He clutched the paper, feeling his chest burst. She was his home, and he kicked her out. He spent hours sorting through photographs, letters, and things. Every picture was a knife, their happiness, their love, their past. He remembered her voice, her laughter, her warmth. He recalled how she looked at him with faith and then with pain. He recalled her words, "Trust is broken, Tom." She was right. He destroyed it, and now she's gone. Night fell on the house. The snow outside the window became thicker. Tom sat among the boxes, holding their wedding photo in his hands. He looked at her smile, feeling the emptiness fill him. His attempt to save the marriage, his confessions, his pleas had come too late. She gave him a chance, but he didn't see it. Now he was left alone in an empty house with photographs that were all he had left. He put the photograph on the floor, covered his face with his hands, and cried quietly, hysterically, like a child. Karen was gone, and he knew it was the end. There was no turning back, only cold silence and memories of happiness that he had lost forever. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.